Man. So, tried my best to. I'm going to try my best to get this done. If it doesn't, well, it's gonna suck, but still, it's the best thing. I had a super fun time. Again, just want to say, check out this band right here, Project Wesker. Super fun time. Um, I'm debating if I should put footage of Resident Evil here or like footage somewhere for like so people like don't get bored. But what happens happens. Anyways, it's 11:44. Going to try to get this done tonight. Um, so please enjoy my suffering. But again, super fun time. I had a great time. Bye bye. Hello, everybody. My name is DeadFireGod, and welcome back to my channel. So Resident Evil 4 remake came out, I believe, a month ago. And if you watched my second channel, you saw that I played through the entire game, loved it. I beat it on professional mode a little bit ago. And there's been a lot of talk recently about will Separate Ways be added to the game since Capcom already announced that they're trying to have everything from the original game in the remake. And I was really thinking about this, and I wanted to do it with a good friend of mine. He's another streamer. He has a lot more followers than I do. His name is Project Wesker. He's a bigger Resident Evil fan than me, and I thought that we could discuss the topic about separate ways um, with him.
Yeah, how's it going? It's Project Wesker. Thanks for having me, man.
Separate ways has been talked about a lot, and a lot of people are asking, when will it come out? Well, we don't really have hard evidence of when it will come out, but we do have some theories. One of them being from a Twitter user who actually was one of the only people who leaked that there was going to be a Resident Evil 4 remake. It could be true, it could be not true, but he stated in a tweet uh, that the Resident Evil 4 remake DLC Separate Ways is not only being worked on right now, but has been being worked on, and it will be released this year if there aren't any hurdles in their way. Um, that's one of the series. So he thinks that it will be coming out this year, unlike the Resident Evil 8 DLC, which was worked on after the game was completed, where he's stating that this DLC is being worked on before the game was released, or as it was being made. Another series states that we're going to be having a PlayStation State of Play, where some people expect that they will show the DLC, and the DLC will either come out a day after or a couple hours after the live stream is done. I'm going to be passing this on to Project Wesker so that he can talk about what we could be seeing in the DLC.
All right, yeah. So for the DLC, that's a good question. I mean, for me personally, there's been a lot of theories, just like you stated. Like, for example, I heard one theory from, I don't know where it came from. I don't know who came up with this theory, so I'm sorry. I don't know the exact person, but there was one theory floating around that we could be getting, or people wanted a DLC about Operation Javier. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. But I mean, personally, I mean, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be, what's the word? I mean, personally, I wouldn't be I'd still be down for a DLC like that. But the issue is that I mean, I would prefer like an actual game, like a remake of Operation Javier, rather than it being a DLC. Because I mean, usually most of the Resident Evil DLCs are kind of short. You know what I mean? Like they're maybe like an hour or two. And the problem with Operation Javier is that it's a bigger game, but of course, I mean it is taken from kind of a spin-off game, which was Darkside Chronicles. That's the first time that it was released. That's the first time we got a glimpse as to the story with Leon and Krauser in the jungles of South America, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was South America or Central America, but you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was South America, but it just kind of looked more like Central America, in my opinion. But uh, anyways, the DLC release for Resident Evil 4. But going back to the main topic, right? DLC release for Resident Evil 4. That's a good question. I mean, if we look back to Resident Evil Village, for example, we didn't get that until what? What wasn't it like a year? Like it was a long
I think
time. Like
I
it
think
just
it was a year, and again, I can't remember. I think it was something like Golem. They said in their tweet that Separate Ways is going to be different because it was already being built as a Resident Evil 4 remake was being built, unlike Village wasn't that didn't have plans for a DLC, but then they made the DLC after the game was made.
Yeah, because that was the weird thing about Village. I mean, Village, they basically, after a couple months, I think, here's the thing, Village released in May of 2021, and I think the DLC first got announced like months after. I think it was like July or June of 2021. It was just a couple of months, and then they were like, "Hey, thank you for the success of Resident Evil Village. We're glad that so many of you guys enjoyed it, and we're announcing that the DLC is going to be free, and we're working on it right now, and we'll have more details later." That was like their Twitter thing, and yeah, so I guess that would make sense, right? I mean, they did they weren't working on it while Village was being released. They worked on it after the release. And as mentioned, I think it came out a year after, or no, a little more, because as mentioned, Resident Evil Village came out on May, and Shadow of Rose and like the Gold Edition or whatever, the Mercenaries, all the DLC came out on what was it, November of 2022?
I believe.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
long time. So
if I remember correctly, I remember seeing a lot of like Shadow of Rose news when the news of the RE4 remake was announced, but I could be
yeah,
wrong.
no, it's true. Yeah, because I think their first announcement was like in the summer. So, but yeah, I think when was the first trailer for Resident Evil 4? I think it came out like what, in July? I think it was during like the Summer Games events or right after, if I'm not mistaken. And then after
Think,
we, yeah, and then after a couple months, we got more and more trailers and stuff. But yeah, and then just like you said, we also got trailers for Shadow Rose because it just came out what, a couple months ago, right? So it's so
yeah,
weird. But yeah, so
I,
if they are working on it right now, that would be awesome because that just means that we get it closer to release. But personally, I don't know. It's really hard to say. But you know what? Now that I think about it, you also have to remember that the data miners for that basically found all of the files in Resident Evil 4, they did state that they did find a couple of files for Separate Ways. So you know
yeah,
what? That kind of makes sense. That kind of makes
and
sense. I don't know if,
also,
yeah. Yep.
they were, if I remember correctly, data miners also found images of Ada in her classic outfit, Ada, Leon in his pinstripe outfit, and Wesker as mercenary images, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they found a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's ridiculous. So I'm kind of excited, but yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you know what? It wouldn't be surprising if it actually if they're working on it right now. So yeah, which
Yeah,
which is just awesome. The reason I'm excited is because that just means that we're going to get Resident Evil 4 a lot quicker than the DLC that we got for Resident Evil 8 Village.
yes. So, what I wanted to talk about, what we could see in the DLC, is two boss fights that I'm actually really excited to see, and that I forgot about was in the original Separate Ways DLC, which is Krauser's boss fight and Sadler's boss fight. I've only played Separate Ways once, the original, and those boss fights were really hard to me. Um,
Yeah.
especially Sadler's was really difficult to me.
Yeah, if I remember
And
correctly, Sadler's was strange. Like I remember, like he just like it's a completely different fight. For those of you that haven't played that DLC, it's a completely different fight from like the Sadler, the final boss of Resident Evil 4, which is also Sadler. It's a completely different because that version of him at the end of RE4, he's kind of like a spider kind of a thing. Like he's got a bunch of legs. You're not really fighting the man. You're fighting like the beast, I guess, within the guy. But in separate ways, you're fighting like Sadler, and he moves super fast. He does like a karate like palm strike or whatever.
oh yeah, he does. I forgot about that. He's
He
like,
like zooms by.
"Wah."
Yeah, yeah. Almost like similar to Wesker a little. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. it's a completely different fight. So yeah, yeah,
which I'm actually super excited to see because the characters that we didn't really see a lot in Resident Evil 4 Remake were Sadler and Ada.
yeah,
So I want to see that because Sadler gets introduced in the middle or at the like end of the game, and then you
yeah.
fight him. And then
I,
Ada gets
uh,
introduced a little bit at the beginning, and then a little bit in the middle, and then a lot of bit at the end.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
Yeah, the first time we actually see like eight, like we get like a sense of her, like for new players to the games, obviously people that haven't played the OG, was after like the cabin fight when she's talking with Luis, and before you get a glimpse of her, like in the Chief Bendis's house, right? So,
oh
but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, but you don't really get like a full introduction until when Luis and her kind of have a conversation. So yeah, it was at the beginning, and then we saw her what at the castle, and then we saw her right before the island, of course. But yeah,
yes,
yeah, but and it's true that what you're saying about Sadler as well, right? I mean, I thought that was one of the things that I thought was a little bit weird for the remake. Like, don't get me
yeah.
wrong, I love the remake, but this is something I stated in my review is that it was kind of disappointing to see that we only like Leon first gets introduced to Sadler on like right before the end, like on the
Yeah.
island section, which is what you just said,
It
right? So it's
it's
wild.
basically just, hi, I'm the boss. Okay, I'm fighting you now.
Yeah, yeah, and
But that
yeah.
it compares like, sorry I cut you off there, but it compares weirdly to the original because like in the original you see him all the time and like you're talking to him all the time.
Yeah, with like the comms, right? You're talking, you have like
Yeah.
funny conversations with them, and it's kind of sad that they took that out of the remake, but yeah, and we also in the OG you meet Sadler at the church. So
Yeah.
when you get Ashley, that's the first encounter with him. So you kind of know of his presence since the beginning. While the remake they took it to another level with kind of like the hallucinations that Leon was having. So he was kind of getting
Mm.
a small, I guess you would call it visions or whatever of Sadler throughout the game. So, but you don't officially meet him until the end. So, but no, I think you're right. I think that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to as well. Is seeing how the Krauser fight is going to play out in separate ways. Is it going to be the same location? You know, and also
That's true.
also with Sadler, in the OG, you fought him like in the silo area, I call it, even though it's like the area where like Ashley's being kept like in a tube, which is like,
Yeah.
but that was replaced in the remake with the ruins, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I just was thinking about that. I was like, that roommate in the remake, is it? Hmm. Yeah, so
and
maybe we'll fight him at a different area or maybe just that replaced area that you were talking about.
yeah,
But
because if you,
Krauser,
oh yeah, sorry, you can go on.
it's fine. Krauser, one thing that I was always confused about because I played Mercenaries mode before I played Separate Ways is why does he randomly have a crossbow? And then in Separate Ways you fight him using with him using the crossbow. I
Oh,
believe.
does he? I completely forgot about that detail.
I
Really,
believe he does.
that's something I always just assumed he had his bow. But yeah, I see. Yeah, and that fight was really strange in the OG. Now that you bring it up, I'm trying to remember because I think um, it's been like maybe 2 years since I played Separate Ways. We were actually doing it on the channel, and we're gonna probably do that after, right? We're gonna stream that, depending on what my viewers want, right? But yeah, going back to what I was saying, it's that fight was always weird in the OG because Krauser didn't speak to Ada during that whole entire fight.
Yeah.
It was really weird. Like
Sorry.
he didn't speak to Ada like at all. And the issue is that I think is probably because since it came out way later. Because if I'm not yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, the when Separate Ways came out, it came out on the PS2. It was not part of the GameCube release of the OG
Yeah.
RE4.
If
So
I believe that the original GameCube didn't have any DLCs if I remember correctly.
yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't like now where you could just download DLC, right? Back then, as soon as you bought the disc, that was it. So that's you have the whole game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, and the other thing that I also wanted, I mean, or let me just go back to what I was saying. Yeah, so So that's what I'm saying, right? Is that Krauser didn't speak. I think the reason why he didn't have unique lines to Ada during that whole fight and he kind of just stayed silent was because they didn't have the voice actor do the lines again. So that's something I'm kind
Mm.
of curious to see, but I'm also kind of confused because the remake did something a little different. You know, if you played the remake, that Krauser fight was changed up a little bit. So in the OG, you kind of just defeat him and then you leave, and then the whole thing blows up. But and then after you find him again in separate ways. But the difference in the remake is that you have that whole scene with Krauser and Leon kind of discussing and talking or whatever, and then after he's like kill me or whatever, and then Leon gets the knife and stabs him. So is he not dead? Like was that just all dramatic? Like does are we actually gonna get a Krauser fight if like because that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like if does that just mean he was just playing? Like he's just pretending to die? He's like, "Oh, you defeated me," and then after he's like,
Kill
"No."
me. I'm definitely like most vulnerable right now.
Yeah, was he capping? Like, so that's gonna be a little strange. I don't know. Like, does that mean that Krauser did in fact die, like by Leon's? Like Leon killed him, or
Yeah,
was he just pretending? And then we're gonna get like an awkward scene where he's just still alive, or
yeah.
so that's
Or
a
maybe
little
they'll
weird.
change it up and Ada's fight is actually before that fight, but that
Oh,
wouldn't really make too much sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because I'm pretty sure in the OG you fight him when he's all transformed. And also
Yeah.
also if Ada defeats him, because I mean if you're playing separate ways, you have to continue the story. It would have to leave off like if they did fight before the events of Leon and Krauser's fight, that means that Ada must have she would have to run away because it wouldn't
Mm,
make sense for the story. Like if Ada defeats him and then he comes, goes back to normal and then fights, yeah, it doesn't work, right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
And one thing that I kind of just thought of off the top of my head was we didn't really know in the remake what Krauser's motive was. I mean, in the original, you have that cut scene where he's first introduced and he's tossing the knife up and then he talks to Ada. You don't get that in the original. You don't know what his motive is, and you don't know if he's working with Wesker at all.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's something that I definitely want to see in separate ways. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, we didn't get that at all. So with separate ways, yeah, I definitely want to see that. I want to see Wesker talking to maybe both Ada and Krauser. Or like you said, that specific scene where Ada's talking with Krauser and he's tossing the knife. And he's like, I knew
Yeah.
Wesker a long, oh, sorry, I'm playing Ada right now. I think Ada says, I knew Wesker way longer than you know him or whatever. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But yeah, that scene, yeah, I definitely want to see again because yeah, we didn't really see a
Yeah.
lot of Wesker. We saw him like twice, but I definitely with separate ways we're gonna see Wesker talking with Ada a lot more, which is yeah,
Yeah, one thing that I was shocked about when I first played Separate Ways I think a year ago. Again, I'm a new person to I'm not like new, but I'm new to Resident Evil 4 and love it so much. But I was so surprised that Wesker shows up so much in Separate Ways. I mean, one of the first things that you see is Wesker and he's like, "Don't mess up now."
yeah,
They're kind
yeah,
they're kind of territorial.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, in the island when Ada's talking. I mean, sorry, not on the island, the village, the
Yeah.
village, yeah, the village square. So yeah, I mean, I'm assuming Wesker's gonna act like Hunnigan. So you know how Hunnigan she kind of has like the little screen while
Y-
she's talking with Leon, while you're going through the game. I'm assuming Wesker's going to do the same thing. It's probably going to look the same with Ada, but she's going to go along a lot of those areas,
like
right? Yeah.
like a cutscene, you mean? Or
No, no, no. I mean, like in Resident Evil 4 remake, when you're playing as Leon or whatever, and you're talking to Hunnigan, Leon will put like his hand to his comms, but you'll also see like a
ah,
like a slight square of Hunnigan, kind of floating as you're going by. Yeah.
mm,
So I'm just saying that it's probably going to be the same thing with Wesker. Yeah.
yeah.
And the other
But
thing I also wanted to mention too was going back to Sadler. So I was mentioning how that area is completely different, but if we remember in Resident Evil 4 remake, after Leon gets the parasite out, the Las Plagas, and then he's continuing on and he goes to that huge ruin section. You can see that there's a bunch of pillars that have fallen over. So like that whole area is basically destroyed. So I wouldn't. So it would make sense that still going to be like the final boss area because they didn't change that, right? Like they just changed the look of the area. But I mean, the same kind of scene plays out where Leon grabs Ashley and gets out of there, and Ada's using her TMP and shoots Sadler. Which, by the way, I thought it was such a cool detail in the OG Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways DLC that when you play against Sadler in the deal in that Separate Ways, when you shoot him, he will just stick out his palm and kind of shoot you back with like the projectile with the bullets.
I forgot about that. That was so
Yeah,
annoying.
yeah. So we saw that in like the main storyline, and we saw that again in the remake where Ada shoots him, and then you see him dropping the bullets from his hand. So all the bullets that Ada shot him like on his body, he his holy body.
His holy body.
Yeah, he always says that, right? That's literally Sadler, his whole character in RE4EF. But yeah, we see his bullets flying down from his hands. So yeah, so that's going to be interesting as well. You know, we were talking about that before about his fight and how it's different. That's going to be super cool. So as mentioned, all of that area is destroyed when you have to go back to that section to go and continue on, and then you fight Sadler again, right? The final boss. So that's going to be interesting, you know, just fighting him with Ada in that bigger area, that kind of ruined area. So yeah, I wonder if they're going to like introduce like the hook shot. Like, will Ada kind of zip line around, because it is a big enough area for her to kind of use her hook shot, right? So
Yeah.
is she going to be like going around like Spider-Man? Because we kind of saw a bit of that like in the remake, like in the final boss area, where she kind of just does like a little Spider-Man, you know, kick to Sadler, and then they're fighting, right? And
Da
then
da da
Leon,
da da.
yeah, I see a Bully
But
Maguire. But yeah, so yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that. Yeah.
speaking of area, there are some areas in separate ways that wasn't in the main story. I mean, a lot of the areas were the same, but some of them were different. I remember one you had to uh, like grapple hook over a like fallen truck or something like that. And then there was one where it's like this crane thing that you have to climb up these ladders and stuff like that. So I can't wait to see what they do with that. And then of
Yeah,
course,
yeah, that's true.
when playing by as Ada, we're going to have to drop the rocket to or the rocket launcher to Leon at the end.
Yeah, that whole section, and we did see a glimpse of that. Like we can see Ada kind of running to the right of the screen near the final boss fight. So yeah, I was yeah that area was completely different, you know, because Ada was kind of ziplining around or using her hook shot, being Spider-Man for a second, and going from different like building structures or whatever. That's how the OG was, and we kind of saw a glimpse of that. We can kind of just see her disappear in the distance, right? And we did have the same scene where Ada drops the RPG, the red RPG. So yeah, I'm excited
Yeah,
for that too. And the also another section too that was different was when Ada and Krauser fight. That whole section too, like you're fighting like up above like the island. So you're kind of fighting like on these tankers. And if I'm not mistaken, you do see them in the remake. Like you can't see them in the distance. Like they're like
I
these oil.
believe so.
I don't know what they are. They're like oil tankers or something. I don't know. They're just like these metal tubes that you fight along. And so yeah, that's going to be interesting. And another area too that I also noticed was right when you get to the ruin area, after you go through like a bunch of the island ganados and stuff. As you get to that ruin area, if that door that you go through, if you look to the left, there's another door there, and that door
Yeah,
is inaccessible. You can't go through it. So I'm
which leads us to the conversation that we're about going to have, which I'll let you take away about you three.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, there was. I think U3 is a little bit before that, to be honest. I think that because if after you fight Krauser, you there's also another door that you can't go through, and that door looked very similar to the OG Resident Evil 4. So right, and the area that I'm specifically talking about is right before you fight Krauser. You have to go through like you have to jump down or whatever, and then you can find like a bunch of tents or whatever and some ganels, and that's where you find the tents where all of Krauser's information is, you know, and
Yeah,
you can find some backstory right in that area, right before that area. You can kind of go back up. So where you jump down, you can go back up. There's like a little circle area where you can just go back there. There's a door there, and that door specifically, I think it's red. I think those are the same doors that Krauser goes. I mean, sorry, that Sadler goes through after he takes Ashley. So it's right after that scene, and
Mm,
that section is inaccessible to Leon. I think that's where uh, Ada will probably fight U3. You know,
yes.
that's what I'm
And
guessing. Yeah.
to give credit where credit's due, I didn't think about you three in separate ways until one of your viewers, I can't remember the name, uh, had the idea of that. So,
Yeah, add J. Yeah.
yeah, add J.
Yeah. But what's interesting
So,
too, that a lot of people were telling me as well is, and this is a file that I missed in Resident Evil 4 Remake, was is that
the
U3,
throne room.
yeah, the throne room, U3 and that is actually they changed the story a little bit. So they made it so that he's the second Verdugo, the second executioner, the left hand of Salazar. So that's also interesting. So it's curious to me. Like, it is did they change the lore there completely? Because that's what it seems like they did. But you mean technically, what if the Verdugo that Ada fights, that second whatever left hand of Salazar, executioner dude, if she kills him, will he transform into the U3 that we know from the OG? Because that would, I mean, it could still be possible. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
because if I'm not mistaken, yeah, U3's tail kind of looks like a bug, you know? Because
Mm,
U3 has like that weird, tongue or whatever. He looks like he looks almost like a scorpion, kind of like hybrid man, kind of a thing. So,
yeah.
but the
Which,
but the tail section kind of looks like the similar tail from the Verdugo, right?
and I
So
think like yeah, and like the mouth too, like the little fang things going
yeah,
up,
yeah.
kind of looks like the Verdugo's mouth a little bit.
And he also has the tail that he also uses to attack. So it wouldn't be far fetched to assume that maybe the Verdugo, maybe Ada will fight the Verdugo, and as she's fighting him, he'll transform into the U3 that we know from the OG. I think that would be sick. If that was the
Yeah.
case, I think every RE fan would just be like flipping, like they, that would just be sick. Like, I'm getting excited even thinking about it right now.
And
Yeah.
at U3, like in the original, you don't really know a lot about it. I mean, Sadler literally calls it it, and then
Yeah.
Leon says the line, perhaps an elderly moment, which I wish that he said in the remake, but sadly he doesn't. Um, but
Oh
you don't
yeah.
really know what U3 is. It kind of looks like the mix between like a man, like a lizard, and maybe like a scorpion, like you were saying.
Yeah, kind of like a
But if you,
chimera kind of a thing, right? I think that's like the Greek
yeah,
legend of like a lion, a scorpion, I think, or a snake, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, yeah, and it's true. We didn't get any information really. I think you can only find one file, and that's about it. And so hopefully we can find more information. I mean, we did kind of, right? I mean, they did call U3 the second Verdugo. So
yes,
yeah. So I mean, that's hopefully we find more though. If he does show up, and that would make sense if he does show up again, because that's the thing that I also mentioned in my video, is that you were referencing before, right? Is that Ada, in the remake, in the RE4 remake story, Leon only fights one Verdugo, but you don't see the second Verdugo.
yeah.
Because in the OG,
If
that Verdugo transforms with Salazar to become that little flower thingamajig, right? Monster, his final form or whatever. But in the remake, that was changed. He's just by himself and he just transforms into like a different kind of hopping around, vomiting liquid kind of a monster. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which shocked me when I was playing it. If you see my reaction, I'm just like, "Where's the second Verdugo? I want to see that Verdugo." But I'll
Yeah.
be, but I'm okay if that Verdugo turns out to be well, I mean, it is U3. Its name is U3 in the
Yeah.
file. But
But you mean if he transforms into the U3 that we know, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
could Ada and Wesker be added to Mercenaries mode?
Yeah, so that's a good question. But I mean, if again with we were talking, we kind of hinted at this before with the data mined stuff, right? So it was
Yeah,
already data mined that we already they like you were mentioning this, like they found a second outfit for Ada, and
yeah, her original outfit from Resident Evil 4.
data miners already found like Wesker. And on top of that, I don't think Wesker's moves were part of the game. Like, not all of his files were intact. So a lot of
Mm.
modders were adding to that. Like, they were adding his old movements from like the OG. And a
Yeah.
funny thing about that is that
They
Capcom
got
shut
taken
that.
down, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, that's really wild. Like Capcom isn't known for that unless they're gonna release something. So I think I talked about Capcom taking down another mod a couple of months ago, kind of referencing the Code Veronica. So a couple of fans were making a Code Veronica fan remake of Code Veronica that got taken down, as well as their remake for Resident Evil One, their fan
Mm.
remake. So yeah, the only time Capcom does something like that, where they just take down mods, is when they're going to release something that's very similar. They did that with Resident Evil 2 remake. Fans were making a fan remake of that, and then it got canceled. Then just a couple months later, Resident Evil 2 remake was announced. So
Yeah.
that's kind of sus. You know what I mean? Like that just that everything we know so far, I think it's a definitely a guarantee that we are going to be getting um Ada and Wesker in the Mercenaries. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's
And
a done deal, right?
yeah, and I'm not really the one to talk about Code Veronica. I haven't played it myself, and I didn't fully finish Resident Evil 1 because I wasn't good at it.
I
Um,
see.
but I
You
think
got to
that
play
that
it. They're
could.
awesome. You got to
I
play
have
it.
heard that
Yeah.
Resident Evil 1 is amazing, and I have heard that Code Veronica is amazing.
Hmm.
But um, I think that all that without talking about it too much, because this is about Resident Evil 4 remake. I think that it is possible that we could be getting a Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil Code Veronica remake.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely looking. I'm just super hyped for any remakes. Like I want them to remake everything. I want remakes for days. Like I want more Resident Evil, you know? How is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
So and they did such a fantastic job with Resident Evil 4. But and the other thing that I also wanted to mention as well is, and this is a video that I made a long time ago, but I noticed people were kind of talking about this subject, which actually goes with what we were talking about before, with what we could see in the DLC. And this is something that I brought up a long time ago. Is it would be really interesting if there was co-op involved in the mercenaries. And what do you
Hmm.
think about that? Like, what do you think about having co-op? Because the reason I kind of brought that up, and I'm pretty sure I was the first one to bring it up, is because it was already announced that there was going to be like online. I'm pretty sure this was released when the rating for Resident Evil 4 was just released, and they said that there was going to be online purchases. So that kind of led me to theorize. Again, this is not confirmed, but it led me to theorize that it's like, why is there like, why are they hinting at this? Are they hinting at like a multiplayer? Because their phrasing, I don't remember the exact word, but there was something that they said in the phrasing that made it seem like it was like for an online game. So I think it was microtransactions. That's what it was. Sorry, I just remembered. That's what it was. They said they had microtransactions, which is a very interesting word to use for a game, right? For a single player game, like
Yeah.
microtransactions. I mean, there's DLC, which I mean, every Resident Evil game has Resident, like since starting with what Resident Evil 5 officially. Because I mean, Separate Ways wasn't like a DLC you could buy because this was like what back in PS2, GameCube era, but Resident Evil 5 was the
Yeah, like
first
they
time.
just came with it.
Yeah, yeah, we were just talking about that. So, um, yeah, but every Resident Evil game has had a DLC. Like even RE3 remake, like it didn't have an official DLC, but it had like DLC where you could buy like the outfits, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like, why would they say microtransactions? That's a little weird. And we do know that Resident Evil 4 remake did kind of surprise us with their with their DLC. Like they did release the tickets or whatever, like exclusive tickets that you could buy. So I guess that could be
Yeah.
microtransactions as well. But I don't know. I mean, this is just a theory, but I think it would be really awesome that to have co-op, because I mean that would just make mercenaries a lot more fun. You know what I mean? And it seems, and I mean the other point that I would bring up to that, the other thing I would argue is that if they weren't going to put more effort in mercenaries, then why didn't they just release Wesker and Ada with the base game? You know,
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
a little weird too. So I don't know. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Uh. Well, I mean, co-op. I think Capcom like if they did do that, may get a little bit of like questioning. But I mean, personally, I wouldn't be too like mad at it. Um, I One of my best friends and fellow YouTuber, that kid Random, he has never played a Resident Evil game in his entire life, and I convinced him to get this, and he played it and he absolutely loved it. I'm making a mercenaries video with him where we challenge each other.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
I think that maybe a co-op version wouldn't be too bad. I mean, you could just have fun with your friends.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah, and that's awesome that you converted your friend to playing Resident Evil. That's sick.
Yes, welcome.
That's
But
hilarious. Yeah.
just hiring him into the cult, the Resident Evil cult.
Yeah.
But
But that's awesome. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, being able to play co-op and that's interesting too. It just shows that Mercenaries is it you know the first time we saw Mercenaries officially in the Resident Evil games was in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. So this was back like in PS1 days, right? If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure there was that version of Mercenaries. But I mean, the Mercenaries that everybody knows and loves is still OG RE4, and the fact that you could still give that to somebody new to the series and they still enjoy it is just awesome to hear. You know what I mean? Because it's not outdated. That just shows too that the game isn't outdated. That still people enjoy it, even though it's still the same kind of formula. You know what I mean? It's a bit different, but it's still the same kind of mercenaries. Even though like with different games like RE5 and RE6, they do change mercenaries. So just a little bit, right? Just little tweaks or improvements, but
yeah,
yeah, but that's really cool to hear that that you just got your friend who's never played, he's not into the Resident Evil series, and he's been enjoying that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's awesome to
yeah.
hear. Yeah.
Uh, he actually completed the professional run before I did, so he got like really into it.
I see. Yeah, you got competition now.
Yeah, I'm not jealous. But speaking of mercenaries and DLC,
Yeah.
there was one other DLC that was released with separate ways in mercenaries and PS1
Yeah.
called Assignment Ada, which I never actually beat Assignment Ada because, again, it was from what I've seen and from my own experiences, it's actually really difficult. At least I thought it was.
Yeah,
So,
there's certain
I,
areas in the DLC where you could get trapped, and then you could like in the assignment Ada that you could get you could just get ganged up on, and so yeah, it's true. There are certain areas like even like the initial sequence like because it starts off on the island section, and that
yeah.
that initial island section where all the ganals are with like the ruins or whatever and the spotlights, that area you could get trapped. So it's true. There
Mm.
are certain areas that you could get stuck throughout the assignment Ada, but yeah. Yeah. You were saying,
So,
yeah. You continue.
so could we be seeing Assignment Ada? Now, I don't know because again, I never completed it, but have you completed it,
Yeah.
Project Wesker?
Yeah, only just a
Is
couple of
it?
times. It's not my favorite, so but yeah, I have. I just recently did it just I think a couple months ago. Yeah, like right before no, I think it was right before Resident Evil 4 Remake came out. I actually beat it.
Mm,
Yeah,
did
again.
I have a question. Is it like is it actually like canon?
No, no, it's not canon at
Okay.
all. It's more like a mini game. So that's why it's. I don't know if it's really necessary to have, but I will tell you this:
Yeah.
I would like to be able to have. Like while you're playing separate ways DLC, for example, you know how in the story you could switch Leon's outfits and stuff. I think it would be
Mm.
sick if you could get Assignment Ada outfit while you're playing the
Oh, like the
story
black
DLC.
outfit?
Yeah, like she kind of has like a military kind of a gown. It almost looks a little military. So, and also, I think it would be sick if they brought also like her OG outfit as well. So I think
Yeah.
if they made it so that it works just like the main story of Resident Evil 4 Remake, where you could switch outfits, like Leon could switch to the pinstripe and all the like accessories for Ashley and as well as Leon. If you could do that with a separate way story and remake, that would be sick. So I would definitely want to see Assignment Ada again. But going back to like the Assignment Ada story, yeah, it's not canon. If anything, it's just a mini game where it's just like Wesker tells you like go and get some vials of Las Plagas and you go through it. But I'm pretty sure like it's not canon. like because it doesn't fully make sense. You know what I mean? Like it's more of a mini game in my opinion. I would be kind of shocked if it was canon, but that's something that I haven't verified. So if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments for any viewers that are watching this. But I'm pretty sure it's not canon. Like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Um, and like I'm not saying that like they're not gonna make it because it's a game mode. I mean, of course, Mercenaries mode is a game mode where it's just a basically like a wave like type game where you fight waves.
Yeah.
But Assignment Ada, from what I saw, it wasn't timed, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. No, it wasn't.
It was,
Yeah.
which they might do, but I don't really think that they'd do that since the whole fun about Mercenaries is that not only do you need to worry about the enemies, but you need to worry about how much time you're spending, when to collect the time ball thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different style of mini games. While Assignment 8 is very short, like it's not that long of a game. Like I'm pretty sure you go through like the island section, you go through like the refrigerator section, the crane, like not the crane section, but like the section where you can kind of pick up in the waste disposal area. Like
Mm,
where Ashley and Leon jump in the OG, they jump into the waste disposal section, and then after you kind of just you can actually fight Krauser again, and then you finish it, I think, up on the tower. So you know that tower we were discussing before where Krauser catches his knife? I'm pretty sure that's the end of it, if I'm not mistaken.
uh,
Yeah. Like again, it's been a couple months since I played it. I think it was like a couple months before Resident Evil 4 remake came out. But yeah, so they have a couple of interesting things where it's just fun because again, you just see you see Krauser just show up. You know what I mean? Like in Transformed, and he just shows up chasing you in that long hallway to go up to the tower, and yeah, so it's not it seems like just it's just a mini game. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just a
yeah,
fun extra thing. So do I think it's necessary for Resident Evil 4 remake? To be honest, no, I don't because it would be a little confusing for newcomers to the series. You know what I mean? Where they might think like, oh, is this part of the story? Or is this just a fun addition? You know what I mean? It's a weird mini game. Like there's no denying. Assignment Ada is
yeah,
very strange, but it's still fun. You know what I mean? Like it's every now and again you play it. Like I said, it's not
mm,
my favorite, but I play it every now and again. So yeah,
yeah. Well, I think that does it for us. I mean, the last two weren't really like long ones because not a lot of information that we have right now, and really they're kind of just like yes or no questions and a little
yeah,
bit of like exploring that. So, in this video, we talked about possible release dates for the DLC, what we could see in it. Could Ada and Wesker be added to Mercenaries mode after the DLC? And is there a possibility that we could be getting Assignment Ada? Um,
yeah,
I want to thank again my friend, uh, Project Wesker.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah, this has been fun. I always love talking about Resident Evil, and so yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
He streams every Saturday. Watch him. He's on like any other Resident Evil YouTuber that I've seen. So
Oh, thanks, man.
re
Thanks, man. I appreciate
really
it.
great stuff. And watch his videos. He does a lot of new stuff about not only Resident Evil 4 but other Resident Evil games. And videos. I think the video that most people love is him translating the Spanish in Resident Evil. So
Yeah,
if you
that's
want to
true.
know what all the enemies are saying, you can watch those. He also does secrets videos and stuff like that. So definitely go watch him. He's amazing. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was a super fun time. Go check out Project Wesker. Again, he does a lot of videos about Resident Evil and Resident Evil 4. Uh, One of the videos that he just posted was could we see Luis show up, which we didn't even talk about. I don't even think that we talked about Luis in this. So yeah, he's probably gonna be in separate ways. Um, Thank you all. Uh, I'm not dead, by the way. I've just been going through a lot. Two people that I know, or that I, uh, yeah, that I know have recently passed away. and one of my family members is in the hospital right now, so you know it's not going too well for me. Um, but I'm doing good. I'll be back for summer. Um, Thank you again, and I hope that you have a great day. Bye, everyone.